Hello darlings, I hope you're well. Today's video is going to be on misconceptions about self-harm. Self-harm still has a massive stigma about it. Myth number one is that it's attention seeking. In most cases it's truly the opposite. I'm 100% sure people do it to seek some sort of help or to show how much they're suffering, but literally most people, the majority of people who self-harm, go to extreme lengths to cover them up, such as wearing long sleeves in the boiling heat. And I think it's actually amazing when people do wear their scars out in public. It's literally just their body, it's not like they're gonna go away anytime soon, scars stay there. This YouTuber called Marie Rose, she does great BPD kind of videos, mental health videos. She did a video that's called Am I Wrong? Should you show your self-harm scars in public? And that goes more in depth about it, and I couldn't agree more with everything she says. I'll link that video. But yeah, it's important to not forget the great lengths that people go to conceal their physical harm. It's quite literally the opposite of attention seeking for the majority of people. People who self-harm typically don't tell anyone what they're doing, and they have difficulty asking others for help. It's a common misconception that self-harm is an attempt to seek attention. One study with teenagers shows that they do not approve of self-harm to seek attention. Instead, they report that self-harm is a private matter. Those who engage in this sort of behaviour don't want attention, and it's kind of like their secret. It's not for attention. And those who wear their scars out in public, they're not doing it for attention. They're just existing with their body as it is. Myth number two is cutting is the only form of self-harm. Trigger warning for this list, but self-harm could also be not wearing sun cream, getting sunburnt on purpose, not looking whilst crossing the road, not eating enough or eating too much, burning, scratching, hitting, headbanging, kicking, punching, picking scabs, self-poisoning, and any dangerous activity. It can literally be anything. I think the problematic term people use a lot is oh, you're a cutter. I hate the word, but people just assume self-harmers are cutters. Couldn't be further from the truth, because those of us who have only experienced, for example, scratching, feel completely invalidated. Myth number three is that self-harm only affects girls, and self-harm obviously doesn't only affect girls, the same way eating disorders don't only affect girls, and BPD doesn't only affect girls. Boys are just less likely to come forward. They're less likely to come forward about any mental illness. There's this big sense of stigma around it. Myth number four is that it's a phase.
I am not friggin' phase.
The idea that someone will grow out of self-harm is a dangerous myth that shuts down conversations that need to be had. It's still a thing. It doesn't just go away with the trends. It's not a thing to keep trendy. It's not a thing only teenagers go through. It's another way of convincing us we don't need to talk about it because it's just a phase. The same goes for any mental illness. It's not a phase, it's a symptom of a condition. If people looked at self-harm more as a symptom of a condition, I think it would be less taboo. Mental illness isn't a choice. You don't choose to be mentally ill, and quite a lot of mental illness, self-harm, is literally just a symptom. These judgments and misconceptions aren't helpful. It's not a phase. Which brings us to number five. Myth number five is only teenagers, adolescents engage in self-harm. Self-harm is more common in adolescence, but it can occur in any age group. Older adults as well as younger adults can fall victim to self-harm. Just because stats show lower rates of self-harm in older people doesn't mean they don't exist. Also, it's important to note younger children self-harm as well, it's not just teenagers. Myth number six is that you're emo if you self-harm. To be fair, emo does just mean emotional, and people with self-harm are coping with emotional distress. So I get why this myth has existed, but self-injury excludes no one. People who self-injure come from all types of backgrounds and groups, ethnicities, economic backgrounds, any gender, gay, straight, poor, rich. You can be a jock. I know in the UK we don't have that, but a skater, you can be a preppy you can be a cheerleader. Literally, you can be emo, you can be popular, any subgroup, any aesthetic, if you will. It doesn't discriminate. Any professional job, adults go through it as well. Teachers, believe it or not, are therapists, literally engineers, anyone, a professor. People who self-harm don't look a certain way. It's not defined by the type of music you listen to. It isn't the case. It's the case for some people, but not everyone. Self-harm myth number 7 is you tried to attempt suicide. Self-harm is often a way just to deal with difficult feelings and emotions. It's not an indication that someone wants to die. Self-harm can occur with suicidal ideation, but they're not the same thing. Individuals who self-harm do not intend to end their lives. It's a coping strategy. It's an expression of distress rather than suicidal intent. In many people's experiences, it's a way for them to stay alive. Even like research confirms suicide isn't like always a suicide attempt. I feel like in 90s movie like The Craft or whatever, there's always a character with self-harm scars that are going this way and they're like, you know, the right way is to go down the track. Yikes. But yeah, self-harm isn't a suicide attempt. This misconception is really annoying because self-harm is just an escape of the thoughts. Basically, it's temporary relief, not a permanent plan to end one's life. Yes, it causes permanent scars and it's not a good release, but that's what it is. It's a relief of horrible emotions. Non-suicidal self-injury is very, very common, and like you don't have to be suicidal to self-harm. And like yes, a lot of people are suicidal who self-harm, but that's just like mental illness in general. The difference between self-harm and suicidal ideation is that with suicidal ideation, person is thinking about suicide and making plans for it. But self-harm, on the other hand, is an impulsive behaviour that doesn't involve any significant planning. In fact, studies show that people who self-harm had decided to do so in less than an hour beforehand, so it is an impulsive thing. Myth number 8 is that self-harm is extremely rare. The fact is that the rates of self-harm are a lot higher than people realise. There's such a shame around self-harm and it appears extremely rare because of how taboo it is and how people cover it and go to extreme lengths to hide it. So you never even know, like your best friend could have been doing it for a long time, your sister could have been doing it for a long time, like your brother, anyone. You most likely know someone who does it, like whether or not you know they do or not. Because of the secrecy around it, seems rare, but according to facts and studies and everything, self-harm during adolescence is around 17%, like around 17% of people who are adolescents engage in self-harm. 13% of those in early adolescence had self-harm. 13% of young people, like really young people do it, and that's really heartbreaking, and 5% among adults. And 5% is a lot more than we realise. So basically self-harm isn't rare. Myth number 9 is people self-injure as a way to manipulate others. This one's very annoying to me. Self-harm is not intended to be a manipulation technique. According to, sorry, I am reading off notes, kind of obvious, I might look into the side. According to Cornell research program on self-injury and recovery, it's a common misconception that people self-harm as a form to manipulate. Manipulation is typically not the primary consent of self-harming behaviour. Self-harm is for stress relief, according to experts. People aren't self-harming to get back at someone or to make someone feel guilty. I'm not denying that people like that exist because I'm sure people do that. Assuming we all do that is kind of offensive. It comes from the extreme emotional pain people feel. It's their coping mechanism, it's their relief. Why would people go to such extreme lengths of hiding it if they were trying to manipulate others? Not everyone is trying to manipulate everyone. This kind of implies that everyone with mental illness and everyone who self-harm is like toxic. It's just not true. I'm not denying people don't do this. Like I said before, it's an impulsive thing. It's not something you premeditate. It's not a way to get back at someone. It's an impulsive, self-harming behaviour. It can stem from self-hatred, stress in general. Instead of taking it out on others, you take it out on yourself. The type of people to self-harm, I don't think are the type of people to be manipulating and kind of like conspiring against people, making people feel guilty for what they've done. Most of us, I'm sure, don't do this, so that's a myth. Myth number 10 is that everyone who self-harms have borderline personality disorder. So whilst 75% of us have self-harmed, as with BPD, I actually do think it's like 90% of us because I follow this person called BPD Creativity on Instagram and all his followers have BPD, and he did a poll, said how many of you guys have self-harmed, and 95% of them said they did. So I think it's higher than 75%, but people with BPD are 50% more likely to commit suicide. 10% of us with BPD do die, which is heartbreaking of course, but not everyone who engages in self-harm behaviours have BPD. They might be diagnosed with depression, bipolar disorder, anorexia, bulimia, any eating disorder, OCD, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety disorders, panic disorders. So people with self-injury may not even have a diagnosable disorder. Almost half college students currently do engage in self-injury kind of behaviour show no identifying mental illness, any range of mental illness, and it could be no mental illness. The last myth is people who self-injure can't feel it and don't feel pain. So self-injury hurts, that's the point. A person may self-injure to reconnect with their body to feel something. It can be a grounding technique to take us out of our emotional mental pain, excruciating mental pain, and give us a physical pain to kind of like trade pain, if that makes sense. It's an awful coping mechanism that ruins lives, but there's no evidence that individuals who self-injure can't feel pain. Like, I feel like there's such a myth that everyone who self-harms is emo and they're doing it to feel something, to feel alive, and they like kind of romanticize it. It's just dumb. People who self-harm obviously feel pain. I think that's just the point. People who self-injure enjoy the pain. They're not doing it because they love it. They're doing it because it's addictive and it releases chemicals in your brain, and it is a temporary fix for the pain with lifelong consequences. They're not doing it because they enjoy it. People self-harm because they're in pain and they want to stop that pain. It's not that they enjoy it, they just don't want to feel like in excruciating pain anymore. Self-injury hurts, that's the point, and it's not a fun thing. No one does it for fun. That's like saying people with bulimia throw up because they enjoy it.
It was all a lie. Guys, it was all a lie.
I can't. Those were 11 misconceptions about self-harm. I think they're all really dumb, but I'm sure a lot of us have internalized these myths, and I'm sure a lot of us haven't told anyone about it because of these myths. By saying like it's so rare, we're not allowing ourselves to have conversations about something that is still such a prevalent thing. You can get through this, and there are better ways to cope with your emotions, and I know it doesn't seem as effective because it's such an addictive behaviour and it feels like the one and only way to numb yourself out. There's other ways to fill the void. The YouTuber Marie Rose does amazing videos on self-harm and I really recommend watching them. You're not alone, like, because it's not rare at all. Like, so many people go through this. These myths kill people. These myths make people feel so alone. It's an extremely difficult cycle to stop, and it can take people like a decade or two to recover. Please seek help. Go to a professional. Thank you for watching.